If high vibration means something precise, then the word high has to describe a scale. High compared to what? Within the Hermetic model of vibration, the answer is not simply more positive. Higher refers first to degree. A higher rate of vibration, a different level of manifestation, a different state. Positive and negative belong more directly to another principle, polarity. That distinction changes the whole meaning of the phrase. The principle of vibration begins from a simple claim: nothing is completely at rest. Different things differ, not only because they look different, but because they occupy different degrees of motion and manifestation. These degrees form a scale, and on that scale, what is called a higher plane corresponds to a higher degree of vibration. That does not mean a higher plane is a place somewhere above us. The planes are described more like divisions on a continuous scale. Physical, mental, and spiritual are large categories used to organize different degrees of activity and life. Their boundaries are not absolute. They blend into one another. This matters because higher is relational. It does not automatically mean happier, kinder, brighter, or morally better. It means higher on the scale being used. The model pushes this very far. Matter, force, the human mind, and spiritual forms are placed on one vast continuum, distinguished by degree and rate of vibration. The point is not that a stone secretly has a cheerful mood, or that thought is literally a radio frequency. The point is that different forms of manifestation are being explained through differences of degree. A simple illustration makes the logic easier to see. Take an object moving faster and faster. At one range of motion, you may hear a sound. Increase the rate, and the audible effect changes. Continue beyond that range, and another kind of effect may appear. The old occult argument uses this kind of transition to make one idea visible. A change in degree can produce a change in manifestation. That illustration should not be confused with a modern scientific proof of Hermetic cosmology. Its value here is conceptual. It shows why higher vibration originally works better as a statement about degree than as a synonym for good energy. But the idea becomes more interesting when the scale moves into the mental plane. Mental transmutation is described as the capacity to pass from one state to another, one degree to another, one condition to another, even one vibration to another. In that framework, changing vibration means changing state. Attention and will become important because the mind is not treated as completely passive. What attention is held upon and how the will directs it can alter the condition of the mind. So the useful question is no longer, how do I stay high vibration? It becomes, what state is changing, toward what degree, and by what operation? Now we reach the distinction that modern language often blurs. Higher and positive are not the same axis. Vibration describes degree. Polarity describes opposite poles within the same kind of thing. Hot and cold, light and darkness, fear and courage. The poles differ by degree, but the operation is different. One principle describes vibration and levels of manifestation. The other describes movement between opposites. This is why the phrase high vibration equals positive energy is too loose. It compresses two different mechanisms into one vague feeling. Even when the system discusses changing an undesirable mental state, the language of positivity is better understood through polarity. Fear is not simply labeled low frequency and courage high frequency. The operation is to move along a polarity, away from one pole and toward another, while mental transmutation describes the change of scribes, the change of state itself. That gives us a much cleaner vocabulary. Vibration asks, what degree or state is this? Polarity asks, where is it between two poles? And mental transmutation asks, how can that condition change? Older Hermetic writing adds an important boundary here. It certainly contains hierarchy, movement, and distinctions between more subtle and more material levels. It can describe intellect, soul, and matter in an ordered relation, and even speak of one level as more subtle than another. But it does not simply give us the same later doctrine of a measurable vibration scale. Likewise, older magical philosophy often describes influence through a different grammar. Something acts, something receives, and the receiver must be fitted to the influence. Again, this is more precise than saying everything is just energy. But it would be a mistake to rename every influence a higher vibration. So there are limits to what this phrase can honestly carry. High vibration does not mean that a good person has a physically measurable higher frequency. It does not mean happiness proves spiritual superiority. And the word vibration here should not be treated as a number of hertz that occult texts somehow measured before modern physics. What the phrase can mean, if we deliberately read it through the principle of vibration, is something narrower and more useful, a higher degree within a scale of states and manifestations. That may refer to a different mental condition. It may refer to a higher plane inside the system. It may describe movement from one degree to another. But the word high is doing technical work. It marks relation on a scale. And that is the distinction worth keeping. High vibration is about degree before it is about positivity. Once that is clear, the phrase stops being a vague compliment for whatever feels good. It becomes a question. Higher in what sense, on what scale, and what exactly has changed? Subscribe for more notions from the Hermetic tradition.